Welcome to lesson 19 of OpenOffice Space. In this lesson we will be learning about queries, part 1. A query provides a method of extracting records from a database table that satisfies certain criteria. A user can create and save a query in the same way as a user can create and save a table. Let us create a simple query using OpenOffice Base. I am using the patients database, which we have been using all along in the previous lessons. In my database pane, I have tables, queries, forms and reports. So I will choose the queries because we are working with queries. In my tasks pane, I have 3 tasks that I can do. One is create a query in design view, one is use wizard to create a query, and the third one is create query in SQL view. So let us look at our question first. Example 1. Design a query called simple query to display all the fields in the patients table. So let us go back to my database, and I'm going to create this query using the wizard because it's not a very difficult one. So I select that option. It gives me 8 steps here that it's going to take me through. Again, select the fields or columns for your query. Firstly, the table that we are using is patients table. The question stipulates that we must display all the fields, so click on the 2 arrows there. Fields in the query, patient number, surname, first name and so on. Click on next. If we want to include any sorting, we can do it in step 2, but we don't want to at the moment. If we have to search any conditions, we can do it in step 3. Detail or summary, step 4. Again, here we are not going to include anything. Let's click on next. Aliases, we're not going to change the field names in any way. Click on next. Overview is a very important part. It gives you an overview of your query. The name of the query, we can change that to simple query as in my question. How do you want to proceed after creating the query? Display the query. Overview, all the fields are reflected here. That is going to be displayed. There's no sorting, there's no conditions, and there's no grouping. Click on finish, and the results of my query are now displayed. Remember, the query wanted us to display all the fields. Very simple. Let's move on to a second example. Example 2. Design a query called visits query to display the surname and first names of all patients who have visited the surgery more than 10 times. Now, in this particular query, we are going to work with a criterion. There must be some condition that is going to be met in order for us to retrieve our results from the table. So, what is the condition here? The condition must be that the patient must have visited the surgery more than 10 times. In order for us to deal with the criterion, we have to use our conditional operators. We have less than, we have greater than, we have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, is equal to, and is not equal to. Going back to our database, I'm going to work with this query using create query in design view. Again, we have our window popping up. It asks you which table do you want to include, patients table. Click on add, and thereafter click on close. Once we have done that, we will find that we will go to another window. Let me just resize this, where this is the query in design view. So I have my patients table. I can look at the fields. It will show me the fields that are available. Okay, when I can click on the fields on top here. I can say surname, I can click first name, and I want to know the number of visits. Or alternatively, I can click on the field row and select the field name. Right. Okay. Now, your columns, you have field name, the table, only one table we are using. We are not including a sort. Visible row. We want the surname to be visible. So the checkbox has been ticked. We want the first name to be visible. So the checkbox has been ticked as well. Unfortunately, we do not want number of visits to be visible. So we untick the checkbox. Under criterion, we are going to use is greater than 10. So my number of visits, that field, if it's greater than 10, it is going to display the surname and the first name of all the records whose number of visits will be greater than 10. Our next step is to save our query, and the name we wanted was visits query. So we'll delete, say visits query, and click on OK. We can run the query in the design view by clicking on Run Query button in our toolbar, and it will give you a table on the top below the ribbon here. We can close this, and if we look at our queries pane, we have now two queries. To open the visits query, you can double click on it, and there you go, you will have a better view of the results of your query. Let us look at one more example. Example 3. Design a query, GEMS query, to display all the fields of patients who belong to GEMS Medical Aid. Let's go to our database. My database pane, choose queries. In my tasks pane, choose create query in design view. Add the table that you want, patients table. Click on close. Let us very quickly resize this particular window. Alright, I'll bring that down there, and I will choose all the fields, so I can use the asterisk there. Sorry, I just want to delete the column. So I'm choosing all the fields: patient number, surname, first name. I'm double clicking on the date of birth, medical aid, gender, medical aid, and number of visits. So the question states display all the fields, and the criterion must be that all members who belong to GEMS Medical Aid. Now there's two ways I can do this. I can press equal to and single quotes, because it's a text field. Type in GEMS under the medical aid column, right? The intersection between the criterion and the row and the medical aid column. I say equal to GEMS. GEMS must appear within single quotes because that field is of type text. And I'll click on save, and very quickly the name of the query is called GEMS query. I'll delete what's here and say GEMS query. Click on OK. I can run the query in this window, and it will give me the results of the query. Now there's one more thing I can do. Instead of using the conditional operator of equal to, I can remove the equal to. So the criterion will be medical aid must be GEMS. I will click on save because I made a change, and when I run the query, it will give me the same result set. So let's close this. I've saved it. Let's close this window and go back to my database, and if I double click on GEMS query, it gives me a better view in this particular window of the result set Note that all the patients belong to GEMS Medical Aid.